For 6 months, the Mafia boss came to her diner at exactly 8:47 a.m. She was just his waitress until the morning she saw a note under his coffee cup. When she warned him about it, everything changed. Now she's pulled into his deadly world, and the only person who can protect her is the man everyone fears. The bell above the diner door chimed at exactly 8:47 a.m., same as every Tuesday morning for the past 6 months. Lena Martinez didn't need to look up from wiping down the counter to know who'd just walked in. The sudden silence was enough. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Even old Mrs. Chun, who complained about everything from the eggs to the weather, suddenly found her pancakes fascinating. Vito Castellano had that effect on people. Lena grabbed the coffee pot, the good stuff, not the burnt sludge they served most customers, and headed toward booth 7. The corner one. Always the corner one, where he could see both doors and keep his back to the brick wall. "Morning, Mr. Castellano," she said, flipping over his cup without waiting for a response. He looked up, and for a half-second, something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe, or surprise that someone in this godforsaken Brooklyn diner actually spoke to him like a human being instead of a rabid dog. "Morning, Lena," his voice was smooth, controlled. Not the gravelly mob boss voice from movies. Vito was 32, not 60. Sharp jawline, expensive suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and an air of danger that wasn't manufactured. It was earned. She poured the coffee steady, not a tremor in her hand. "The usual?" "Please. 2 eggs over easy. Rye toast. Bacon crispy, not chewy." She'd memorized it after the second visit, same way she memorized everyone's order. Good tips came from good memory. As she turned to go, Vito's hand moved to the saucer. That's when Lena noticed it, a small piece of paper, folded tight, tucked just under the white ceramic. Her stomach dropped. She hadn't put that there. Vito's fingers found it immediately, his movements so smooth that anyone watching would think he'd just adjusted his cup. He unfolded it beneath the table, his eyes never leaving the diner, scanning faces, reading the room the way a hawk reads a field of mice. Lena watched his expression change. Not dramatically. Vito Castellano didn't do dramatic. But his jaw tightened, his shoulders squared, and when his eyes finally moved to read what was written, they went cold, Arctic cold. He stood abruptly, the booth seat creaking. "Mr. Castellano?" Lena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Your breakfast." Not hungry, he dropped $300 bills on the table, without counting them, for a meal that cost $12. Then he was moving toward the door, his phone already at his ear, speaking rapid Italian to whoever answered. The 2 men who'd been sitting separately by the windows, his bodyguards, Lena had figured out weeks ago, fell into step behind him like shadows. The bell chimed again. And just like that, he was gone. The diner exhaled. Conversations resumed. Mrs. Chin went back to complaining about her pancakes being too dry. But Lena stood frozen, staring at booth 7. At the $300 that would cover her electric bill and groceries for 2 weeks. At the coffee cup still steaming. At the white saucer. Something was very, very wrong. "You okay, hon?" Lena jumped. Rita, the other morning waitress, 60-something with bleached blonde hair and a smoker's rasp, was giving her a concerned look. "Fine. Just." "That was weird, right?" Rita snorted. "Everything about that man is weird. You know who he is, don't you?" "I know the rumors." "Ain't rumors, sweetheart." Rita lowered her voice. "Vito Castellano runs half the businesses in this borough. His family's been doing it since Prohibition. You treat him nice because nice keeps you breathing, not because you want a good tip." Lena had suspected as much. You didn't get that kind of reaction from people, that instant fear, by running a legitimate import-export business, no matter what the paperwork said. "Why's he come here, though?" Lena asked. "This place is a dump. He could eat anywhere." Rita shrugged. "Maybe he likes the coffee. Maybe he's nostalgic. His old man used to eat here back in the day." Before, she made a gesture across her throat. before he got whacked in '09. Lena's blood chilled. His father was murdered. Shotgun to the face in a restaurant in Little Italy. Vito was barely 23, still in college pretending to be a normal kid. Had to come home and take over the family business. Rita's expression softened. Not saying he's a good guy, but life dealt him a shit hand, and he played it the only way he knew how. Lena looked back at the booth. At the money. At the abandoned coffee. Something had terrified Vito Castellano badly enough to walk out mid-routine. And routines, she'd learned, were everything to men like him. Routines kept you alive. Predictability was safety. Someone had just shattered that safety. She walked over and picked up the bills, then froze. The saucer. She'd given him a clean one from the stack. She always did. But before she'd brought the coffee over, she'd been in the kitchen for maybe 90 seconds, calling in his order. Someone had swapped it. Her eyes darted to the kitchen window. Miguel was at the grill, flipping eggs. Darnell was on dishes. But Danny the busboy, was missing. Rita, where's Danny?
Who? Danny.
The new busboy. Started last week. Rita frowned. Don't know any Danny, hon. We haven't hired anyone new since March. The floor seemed to tilt under Lena's feet. She pushed through the kitchen door. Miguel, the busboy, where is he? Miguel looked up, confused. What busboy? The kid. Early 20s, dark hair. Always wore the white polo shirt. Lena, we don't have a busboy. Budget cuts, remember? Been just us since spring. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd seen him. Every day for a week. He'd cleared tables, refilled water glasses, smiled politely. He'd been here this morning, moving between booths with a gray tub full of dirty dishes. He'd been near booth 7. And now he was gone. Lena pulled out her phone with shaking hands and did something stupid, reckless, and probably suicidal. She Googled, Vito Castellano contact. The first result was a news article about a construction company. The second was his Wikipedia page, surprisingly detailed for a crime boss. The third was a local business directory. She clicked it. Found a phone number for Castellano Import and Export. And called it before she could talk herself out of it. 1 ring.
2.
Castellano, his voice.
Sharp.
Guarded. Mr. Castellano, this is Lena. From the diner. I think you need to know something about that note. Silence. Long enough that she thought he'd hung up. Then, I'm listening. The person who left it. The busboy. He doesn't exist. Another pause. Explain. I thought we'd hired him last week. I've seen him every day. But I just asked the staff. Nobody else remembers him. Nobody hired him. Mr. Castellano, someone planted him here. Someone wanted you to get that note. What did it say? She asked, though she knew she had no right to the answer. Something that should have been impossible for anyone to know. His tone shifted, became almost curious. Why are you telling me this? Good question. Why was she? The smart move was to stay out of it. Cash the $300 and forget this morning ever happened. But Lena had watched her father get gunned down in a liquor store holdup when she was 16. Caught in crossfire between 2 gangs fighting over territory. Nobody had warned him. Nobody had cared enough. She knew what it looked like when someone was walking toward a bullet. Because whatever that note said, Lena answered quietly, I don't think you're supposed to survive it. Vito Castellano laughed. It was a dark sound, humorless. Stay at the diner, Lena. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Lena? Yes. Don't talk to anyone else about this. Not the cops. Not your coworkers. No one. Understood? Understood. He hung up. Lena stood in the kitchen, phone clutched in her hand, wondering if she'd just saved a man's life or signed away her own. Outside, through the window, she saw a black sedan roll past slowly. Tinted windows. No plates. It circled the block once. Then disappeared. The warehouse that served as Castellano headquarters smelled like motor oil and old money. Vito walked through the ground floor, legitimate front, importing olive oil and wine from Italy, and took the steel stairs to the second level where the real business happened. 6 men waited in the conference room. His inner circle, the ones who'd sworn loyalty when he'd taken over the family at 23, still wet behind the ears and drowning in his father's blood-soaked legacy. Gentleman Vito took his seat at the head of the table. Not the largest chair, not the most ornate, but positioned where he could see everyone's faces. Marco Ferretti sat to his right, 56 years old.
3 decades in the life.
Silver hair slicked back, expensive watch, and eyes that had seen too many bodies drop. He'd been Vito's father's underboss and had assumed, he'd step up when the old man died. Instead, the family council had chosen bloodline over experience. Marco had smiled at the decision, pledged his loyalty, kissed Vito's ring. But Vito had seen the calculation behind those eyes, the patience of a man who knew how to wait. "We've got a problem," Vito said simply. "What kind of problem?" asked Tony Greco, head of their union operations. Thick accent, thicker neck. "The kind I don't fully understand yet." Vito leaned back. "Someone's making moves. Quiet ones. I want eyes on everyone, our people, the other families, anyone we do business with." "That's half of Brooklyn," Marco said, his tone casual but edged. "What exactly are we looking for, Vito?" The use of his first name instead of boss wasn't accidental. Marco did it in front of the others just often enough to plant seeds. Just a kid playing dress-up in his father's clothes. Anything unusual. Changed patterns. New faces. People asking questions they shouldn't. "This about the Russians?" asked Paulie Mancini, who handled their gambling operations. "Because I heard they've been sniffing around our card rooms." "It's about being careful." Vito cut him off. "We got comfortable. Comfortable gets you killed." Marco's fingers drummed the table.
Once. Twice.
"With respect, you're being vague. The men need specifics. They need to know what threat we're facing." Vito met his gaze. "Held it. When I have specifics, you'll get them. Until then, everyone watches their back and reports anything odd. Meeting's over." The dismissal was abrupt. Intentional. Vito watched their reactions. Tony looked confused but nodded. Paulie shrugged and stood. The others filtered out, murmuring. Marco stayed seated. "Something else?" Vito asked. "You're worried." Marco's voice dropped lower, almost fatherly. "I've known you since you were 12 years old, Vito. I can tell. What happened?" For a moment, Vito considered telling him. Marco had been loyal to his father for 20 years, had taken bullets for the family, had earned his position through blood and fire. But that note, "He'll take your chair before dessert." Only 7 people knew about tonight's banquet. The annual gathering where family business was discussed, alliances renewed, and power confirmed. Vito would sit at the head table, the metaphorical chair of power. Someone was planning to move against him, tonight. And the note had been too specific, too insider. It came from someone close. "I'm always worried, Marco. That's why I'm still alive." Marco stood slowly, buttoning his suit jacket. "Your father trusted me. I know."
"Do you?"
"Because this," he gestured vaguely, "feels like suspicion. Feels like you think there's a snake in the garden." "There's always a snake in the garden, Marco. That's why smart men watch where they step." Something flickered across Marco's face. Too quick to read. Then he smiled. "I'll double the security for tonight's banquet. Just in case." "Appreciate it." Marco left, closing the door behind him. Vito waited exactly 30 seconds, then pulled out his phone, opened an encrypted app, sent 3 words to his most trusted soldier, Enzo, who wasn't part of the inner circle and reported only to him. "Watch Marco closely." Across town, in a cramped surveillance room that smelled like burnt coffee and desperation, Detective Frank Rossi adjusted his headphones and listened to static. The wiretap on Marco Ferretti's personal cell had been active for 8 months. 8 months of listening to the man order pasta, complain about his wife, and discuss union contracts that were technically legal if you squinted hard enough and ignored reality. Frank was about to give up for the morning when the static cleared. Marco's voice. It's me. Unknown male. You heard? Marco. He knows something. Not what, but something. He's rattled. Unknown. Does he suspect you? Marco. Maybe.
Probably.
Kid's paranoid like his old man. But he's got no proof, and by tonight it won't matter. Unknown. The cousin arrives at 4. Make sure he's seen with the right people. We need witnesses placing him. The call ended abruptly. Frank sat back, his heart racing. He rewound the audio. Listened again. By tonight, it won't matter. He grabbed his desk phone and dialed his lieutenant. Sir, we've got movement on the Castellano case. Marco Ferretti's planning something. Sounds like tonight. What kind of something? The kind that ends with body bags. I need authorization for a tactical team on standby. His lieutenant sighed. Frank, you've been chasing these guys for 3 years. Every time you think you've got something, it's nothing. Ghost trails and dead ends. This is different. I can feel it. Your feelings don't get me warrants. Bring me something concrete, or stand down. The line went dead. Frank pulled off his headphones and stared at the transcript on his screen. 23 years on the force. 15 in organized crime. And he was finally, close to bringing down a major player. But he needed evidence. Real evidence. He needed someone on the inside to flip. His eyes drifted to a file on his desk. Open case. 7 months old. Lena Martinez. Witness to gang-related homicide, 2019. Father. Eduardo Martinez, killed in crossfire. He'd interviewed her back then. Smart kid.
Tough.
Refused witness protection because she said hiding wouldn't bring her father back. And now she worked at the diner where Vito Castellano ate breakfast every Tuesday. Frank grabbed his coat. Maybe it was time for a follow-up interview. The afternoon shift was always quieter. Lunch rush over, dinner crowd hours away. Just Lena, a handful of regulars, and the persistent smell of grease that no amount of Pine Sol could kill. She was refilling salt shakers when the bell chimed at 3:15 p.m. Vito Castellano walked in alone. No bodyguards. No entourage. Just a man in an expensive suit entering a diner that had seen better decades. Every survival instinct Lena possessed screamed at her to run. Instead, she grabbed a coffee pot. He slid into booth 7. Same seat. Different energy. This wasn't routine. This was business. Thought you weren't hungry, Lena said, keeping her voice light as she approached. I'm not, he gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. I'm working. Lena, not a request. Not quite a threat. Something in between that made her pulse quicken. She glanced at Rita, who was pretending to wipe down a table while watching them like a hawk. Rita gave a tiny nod. Don't make him angry. Lena slid into the booth. Up close, she could see the details. The faint scar above his left eyebrow. The exhaustion around his eyes that expensive suits couldn't hide. The way his hands rested on the table, relaxed but ready, like a coiled spring. Tell me about the busboy, Vito said quietly. Everything you remember. Lena's mind raced back. Started showing up maybe a week ago. Monday, I think. Early 20s. 5'10", 5'11". Dark hair, kind of shaggy. Always wore a white polo shirt and black pants. Generic, you know? Like he was trying not to stand out. Accent. New York. Could have been Brooklyn, could have been Queens. Nothing distinct. She closed her eyes, pulling up the memory. He had a tattoo. Small one on his wrist. Looked like numbers. Could have been a date. Vito's eyes sharpened. Which wrist?
Left. And he wore a silver chain. Thin.
Might have had something on it, but I never got close enough to see. She opened her eyes. He smiled a lot. Too much, actually. Like he was nervous or trying too hard to be friendly. Did he ask about me? Not directly. But Lena frowned, the memory clicking into place. He asked what time we got our regular customers. Said he wanted to learn the rhythm of the place. I told him breakfast rush was 7 to 9, and that we had a few who came like clockwork. You mentioned me specifically?
No.
But he could have figured it out. You're not exactly subtle, Mr. Castellano. Black SUVs, bodyguards, the way everyone stops talking when you walk in. Vito. What? Call me Vito. We're past formalities now. He leaned back, studying her. You notice a lot. I'm a waitress. Noticing things is the job. Who needs a refill? Who's about to leave? Who's going to stiff me on the tip? She held his gaze. Who's dangerous? And am I dangerous? Obviously. He smiled. Actually smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger. Almost normal. Most people lie to me, either from fear or because they want something. I'm too tired to lie, and I already know you won't give me what I want. Which is, for my father to still be alive. For this neighborhood to be safe. For men like you. She stopped herself. Go on. It doesn't matter. It does to me. His voice went softer. Your father. How did he die? Lena's throat tightened. He was buying lottery tickets at a bodega on Flatbush. 2 crews got into it over territory. Bullets started flying. He was just there. Wrong place, wrong time. She looked down at her hands. He was an accountant. Never hurt anyone in his life. 52 years old. Dead because someone needed to prove they were tough. The silence stretched between them. I'm sorry, Vito said finally, and he sounded like he meant it. Are you? Because men like you, your world, that's what killed him. Yes, Vito said simply. It is. The honesty startled her. No excuses. No justifications. Just acknowledgement. I can't change what happened to your father, he continued. But I can tell you this. If it happened on my territory, the people responsible answered for it. And I can promise you that what I do with precision. Civilians don't get caught in crossfire. That's a rule. How noble, Lena said, but without venom. She was too exhausted for anger. You're still a criminal. I am. He signaled Rita for coffee. Waited until she'd poured and scurried away. But I'm a criminal who needs your help. With what? Someone's coming for me. Tonight, probably. That note was a warning from someone who doesn't want me dead. At least not yet. But I don't know who sent it or who they're warning me about. He took a sip of coffee. You have good eyes, Lena. You notice things. And right now, I need someone who sees clearly. You have an entire organization. That might be compromised. Someone close to me is making moves. I can't trust my own people until I know who. His gaze intensified. But you? You don't owe anyone anything. You don't have skin in the game. You're exactly what I need. An outsider who pays attention. This is insane. Probably. He pulled out a card, slid it across the table. A phone number written in neat handwriting. Your shift ends at 6. Meet me at this address at 7.
Just to talk.
You walk away after if you want. But Lena. He waited until she looked at him. The busboy who doesn't exist? He'll remember you saw him. He'll remember you called me. Whether you help me or not, you're already involved. Ice water flooded Lena's veins. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you the truth. And I'm offering protection. He stood, dropped $200 on the table. 7 o'clock. The choice is yours. He walked out, leaving Lena sitting alone in booth 7. Staring at a phone number. Holding the realization that her simple life had just become very, very complicated. Outside, a black sedan rolled past. Same one from this morning. Still no plates. JFK Airport's international arrivals terminal buzzed with the chaos of reunions and departures. Families embraced. Business travelers rushed past. Taxi drivers held handwritten signs. Nico Castellano walked through customs with a single leather duffel bag and the easy confidence of someone who'd learned to travel light. 31 years old. Lean build. Dark hair touched with premature gray at the temples. He wore jeans and a linen shirt that screamed European in a way American clothes never quite managed. A thin scar ran along his jawline, souvenir from a Barcelona bar fight 3 years back. He spotted Vito immediately. His cousin stood near the exit, hands in pockets, watching the crowd with the same assessing gaze Nico remembered from childhood.
Different suit, same eyes.
Vito's face split into a genuine smile. Nico dropped his bag and they embraced, quick, backslapping, careful. The hug of men who trusted each other but knew better than to let their guard down completely. Spain treating you good? Vito asked, grabbing the duffel. Can't complain. Opened a wine bar in Barcelona. Small place, nothing fancy. Tourists and locals. Nico's English carried a faint accent now, vowels softened by years abroad. Turns out I'm decent at the legitimate business thing. Dad would have had a heart attack. Dad had a heart attack anyway. Just happened to involve buckshot. They walked toward the parking garage. Around them, normal people lived normal lives. Nobody recognized Vito Castellano here. Nobody cared. I was sorry I couldn't make it back for that, Nico said quietly. By the time I heard, you were in Prague on business. I know. It's okay. Vito clicked his key fob. A modest Audi beeped, not the flashy SUV, Nico noted. Keeping low profile. You sent flowers. You called. Still should have been here. They loaded into the car. Vito drove, navigating out of the terminal maze with practiced ease. So why am I here now? Nico asked. Your message said family business, but you know I'm out. Been out since we were kids. I remember. Vito merged onto the van wick. You were the smart one. Saw the writing on the wall and got out before the ink dried. You could have come with me. We both know that's not true. Vito's hands tightened on the wheel. Dad was grooming me since I could walk. You were the spare, no offense, so you got options.
Me?
I got destiny. Nico watched the city scroll past.
10 years he'd been gone.
10 years of distance from the life. From the violence. From watching his uncle, Vito's father, rule through fear and favors. You didn't answer my question, Nico said. Why am I here? Because I trust you. And right now, that's a short list. Trouble. Someone in my organization is making moves. I don't know who yet, but it's coming to a head. Vito glanced over. Tonight there's a banquet. Annual thing. All the family, associates, everyone who matters. I need eyes I can trust. I've been gone a decade. I don't know your people anymore.
Exactly.
You're a blank slate. Nobody sees you as a threat. You're family but not family, you know? You can observe without pressure. Nico rubbed his jaw. This is a bad idea. Probably. But you're here anyway. Because you're my cousin, and you asked. Nico sighed. What am I looking for? Anything that doesn't feel right. Someone acting nervous. Someone too confident. I need fresh perspective. The Audi pulled up to a brownstone in Park Slope. Expensive. Tasteful. The kind of place a successful businessman might own, not a mob boss. You're not staying at the family mansion? Nico asked. That place has too many years. This is cleaner. Vito killed the engine. Guest rooms upstairs. Banquets at 8. We leave at 7:30. I know I'm asking a lot. I know you built something good in Barcelona.
Clean life.
Legal money. Vito turned to face him. But someone's coming for me, Nicky. And family's the only thing I've got left that's worth a damn. Nico saw it then, the exhaustion. The weight. His cousin carried an empire on his shoulders, and empires were heavy, hungry things. One night, Nico said. I'm here for one night. Then I'm gone. One night, Vito agreed. They didn't see the black Mercedes parked 3 cars back. Didn't notice Marco Ferretti in the driver's seat, phone pressed to his ear. He's here, Marco said quietly. Nico just arrived. Perfect timing. The voice on the other end replied. He's been in Europe for years. Easy to fabricate connections. Foreign contacts. Money trails. The cousin angle works, Marco continued. Everyone knows blood runs deep. If Vito's own family turns on him, It's believable. Tragic, even. You have the forged documents, bank transfers from a shell company in Madrid, emails discussing a change in leadership, phone records showing calls to rival families. Marco smiled coldly. By midnight, Nico Castellano will look like he's been planning a coup for months. And Vito will be too dead to question it. The cousin killed him, we killed the cousin, and I step up to restore order. Clean succession. The council will approve it. Marco ended the call and watched Vito and Nico disappear into the brownstone. Nico had no idea he'd just been cast as the villain in a story that was already written. The evidence was planted, the narrative set. All Marco needed now was the finale. He pulled away from the curb, already mentally rehearsing his speech for the council. The grieving underboss. The loyal soldier who'd avenged his fallen boss. The reluctant leader accepting the burden of power. It would be perfect. Inside the brownstone, Nico unpacked his duffel in the guest room, pulled out clean clothes for tonight, checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Barcelona. His business partner wondering when he'd return. He'd promised Vito one night. He had no idea it might be his last. The Red Hook warehouse sat at the edge of the Brooklyn waterfront, surrounded by shipping containers and the smell of salt water. Marco Ferretti pulled his Lexus into the gravel lot at 9 p.m., headlights cutting through the darkness. 3 men waited inside. Not his entire crew, just the ones who understood that loyalty was a negotiable currency. Tommy the Hammer DeLuca. Muscle. Simple brain, strong back, and no moral complications about who he hurt. Sal Peretti. Mid-level enforcer who'd been passed over for promotion twice. Hungry. Resentful. And Jackie Russo. The busboy who didn't exist. Real name, Jackie Marino. Marco's nephew, actually. Drama school dropout who'd found his calling in undercover work for his uncle. Everything set for tonight? Marco asked, closing the warehouse door behind him. Security's doubled like you suggested, Sal said. But our guys are in position. The senator's room service staff, the caterers, 2 of the valets. When you give the signal, they move. Weapons. Stashed in the kitchen. Behind the industrial freezer. Untraceable. Marco nodded. And the Nico situation? Jackie pulled out his phone, showed Marco a series of documents. Bank transfers from Madrid to a dummy account. Emails between Nico and the Genovese family discussing territory splits. Phone logs showing calls to known rivals. Metadata checks out. Clean as a whistle. Timestamps, IP addresses, everything. Any forensic accountant would believe it. Good, Marco lit a cigar, exhaled slowly. Here's how it plays. During Vito's speech, I present the evidence. Public accusation. Nico will deny it, obviously, but by then the room's already fractured. Confusion. Chaos. In that chaos, Vito gets hit. Crossfire, tragic accident, whatever. Nico goes down too, resisting arrest or caught in the same crossfire. And you restore order, Tommy said, grinning. And I restore order, Marco checked his watch. The banquet starts at 8. By midnight, this family gets the leadership it deserves. Leadership that remembers the old ways. Strength. Respect. Not some college kid playing Don because of his last name. What about the waitress? Jackie asked. Marco's eyes narrowed. What waitress? From the diner. She called Vito today.
Told him about me.
That I was planted. She made you. Somehow.
She's smart.
Observant. Jackie shifted uncomfortably. If she talks more, if she remembers other details, then she becomes a problem, Marco said coldly. Where is she now? Working late shift at the diner. Closes at 10-inch. Marco looked at Tommy. Pay her a visit. Nothing permanent.
Just
encourage her to forget what she saw. Convince her that curiosity's bad for her health. Tommy cracked his knuckles. My pleasure.
Lena's feet ached.
Her back hurt. And she'd spilled marinara sauce on her uniform during the dinner rush, leaving a stain that looked disturbingly like blood. It was 9:47 p.m. The diner was finally empty. Rita had left at 9. muttering about her grandson's basketball game. Miguel and Darnell had clocked out 10 minutes ago. Just Lena now, wiping down tables and counting tips that added up to $73 and change. She decided not to go to the address Vito had given her. It was insane. Getting involved with a mob boss because of some note and a disappearing busboy? That was how people ended up in Rivers. Better to cash out, go home, deadbolt her door, and pretend today never happened. She was counting the register when the bell chimed. Lena looked up, ready to say they were closed. Two men stood in the doorway. Big men. The kind who lifted weights and broke things professionally. "Sorry, we're closed," Lena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're not here for food," the bigger one said.
Tommy.
She didn't know his name yet, but she'd remember his face. Flat nose, scar across his cheek, dead eyes. The other one locked the door behind them, flipped the sign to closed. Lena's hand moved slowly toward her phone. "Don't," Tommy said, crossing the diner in 3 long strides. He grabbed her wrist, hard enough to hurt, and took the phone. "You had a conversation today. With Vito Castellano." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult my intelligence." He squeezed her wrist harder. Lena gasped. "You told him about the busboy. About the note. That was stupid." "I was just..." "You were just sticking your nose where it doesn't belong." He released her wrist, but only to grab her by the throat. Not choking.
Not yet.
Just pressure. A promise of what could happen. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to forget everything you saw. The busboy, the note, all of it. You're going to stop talking to Vito. And if anyone asks, you're going to say this conversation never happened." Lena couldn't breathe.
Couldn't think.
Her vision tunneled. Then headlights. Bright through the diner windows. A car door slammed. Tommy released her immediately. Both men stepped back, hands moving inside their jackets. The diner door rattled.
Locked.
A voice from outside. "Miss Martinez?" "It's Enzo. Mr. Castellano sent me." Tommy and his partner exchanged looks. A silent calculation. Fight or flight. They chose flight. Moving fast, they headed for the kitchen, toward the back exit. Lena heard them crash through the door, footsteps disappearing into the alley. Lena's hands shook as she unlocked the front door. Enzo was mid-40s, solid build, wearing a simple black suit. Not flashy. Not threatening.
Just
present. His eyes swept the diner, read the situation immediately. "You okay?" Lena shook her head.
couldn't speak.
Her throat hurt where Tommy had grabbed her. Enzo pulled out his phone. "One call. Boss, we've got a problem. Someone just tried to intimidate Miss Martinez."
"2 guys.
"They ran when I arrived." He listened. "Understood." He hung up. "Mr. Castellano's coming. Says you need protection until we sort this out." "I don't want protection. I want to go home." "That's not safe anymore." Enzo's voice was gentle but firm. "You helped him today. That made you visible. And visible makes you a target." Lena slumped against the counter. She'd tried to do the right thing. Warn someone about danger. And now her own life was unraveling. 15 minutes later, Vito arrived. He took one look at Lena, the red mark on her throat, the fear in her eyes, and his expression went cold. "Who?" he asked quietly. "I don't know."
"Big guy.
Scar on his face. Told me to forget everything." "Marco's crew," Enzo muttered. Vito's jaw clenched. "Take her to the brownstone.
Guest room.
Nobody goes near her without my say-so." "Vito, I can't just." "You can and you will." He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw real emotion break through. Anger. "I brought you into this. That's on me. But I'll be damned if I let them hurt you because of it." Lena was too tired to argue. Too scared to refuse. She grabbed her purse and followed Enzo into the night, leaving behind the diner, her normal life, and any illusion of safety. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For 3 blissful seconds, she didn't remember where she was or why. Then reality crashed back. The diner, the hands around her throat, the ride through Brooklyn in a black SUV with Enzo at the wheel. She sat up. The guest room was simple, but expensive. White sheets that probably cost more than her monthly grocery bill. Minimalist furniture. A clock on the nightstand read 8:23 a.m. Her phone, returned to her last night, showed 6 missed calls from Rita and a text. "Where are you? You okay?" Lena typed back. "Family emergency. Need a few days off."
Sorry. A lie.
But what was the truth? "Sorry, I'm hiding from the mob in a crime boss's brownstone." She found her clothes from yesterday folded on a chair, cleaned somehow. There was also a new outfit, jeans, a soft gray sweater, her size. She tried not to think about how they'd known. Voices drifted from downstairs.
Mail.
Conversation in Italian, rapid and tense. Lena changed quickly and followed the coffee smell. The kitchen was all stainless steel and marble. Vito sat at the island counter, newspaper open, espresso cup in hand. He'd traded yesterday's suit for dark jeans and a simple white button-down. More human, less mob boss. Nico leaned against the counter, eating toast. He looked up when Lena entered, eyebrows raised. "The famous waitress," he said in lightly accented English. "I'm Nico, the cousin."
Lena.
"The complication." He laughed. "I like her, V. Don't get attached," Vito said, but his tone was mild. He gestured to the coffee maker. "Help yourself. You like eggs." "I'm not hungry. You need to eat." Long day ahead, he was already pulling eggs from the refrigerator, butter, bread. Moving around the kitchen with surprising ease. "You cook?" Lena asked, caught off guard. "My mother insisted," said a man who can't feed himself is a child, not a man. He cracked eggs into a pan. "She died when I was 17. Cancer. Dad fell apart. I learned to cook, so we wouldn't starve." The domesticity was surreal. A mafia boss making her breakfast while his cousin read something on his phone, and morning light painted everything gold. "Nico, give us a minute," Vito said quietly. Nico grabbed his coffee and disappeared without argument. Lena sat on a bar stool, suddenly exhausted again despite having just woken up. "What happens now?" "Now we figure out who's coming for me and stop them." Vito plated scrambled eggs, toast. Slid it across to her. "But first you eat." The eggs were perfect. Fluffy. Seasoned just right. Lena ate mechanically, aware of Vito watching her. "Your throat," he said. "Let me see." She tilted her head. His fingers were gentle as they examined the bruising, surprisingly soft touch for such dangerous hands. "I'll find who did this," Vito said, his voice low and hard. "And they'll regret it. More violence." "Great solution. You have a better one?"
Yeah. Leave. Get out of this life.
"Stop being the person people want to kill." Lena met his eyes. "You said your mother taught you to cook. You went to college. You had options, Vito. You chose this. You think it's that simple? Isn't it?" He poured himself more espresso, leaned against the counter. "My father was murdered when I was 23. Shot in the face during dinner. The people responsible expected me to fold. Expected the family to fracture, territory to be carved up." He paused. "I came home from Columbia University. I was studying architecture, believe it or not, and I had a choice. Let my father's life mean nothing, let vultures pick apart everything he built, or step up. So you became him."
No.
"I became a version that could survive." Vito's expression hardened. "My father was old school. Brutal. He believed fear was currency. I believe in efficiency. Clean business. No civilian casualties. The violence happens, but it happens between people who chose this life." "Like my father chose it?" Lena's voice cracked. "He was buying lottery tickets, Vito. He taught math to 8th graders. He coached Little League. And he died because your world spilled into his." "I know."
Do you?
"Really?" She stood up, anger finally breaking through the fear. You sit here in your expensive brownstone, cooking organic eggs, talking about efficiency like you're running a corporation. But people die. Real people. People with families and dreams, and… I know because I see their faces. Vito's voice cut through her anger. Quiet. Intense. Every person who's died because of decisions I made. Every widow. Every orphan kid. You think I sleep well, Lena? You think this is easy? They stared at each other across the kitchen island. Then why not stop? She asked, genuinely confused. Because walking away doesn't undo what's already done. And it creates a power vacuum that gets filled by someone worse. He ran a hand through his hair. At least this way, I control the damage.
Keep things contained.
It's not redemption, but it's something. Lena sat back down slowly. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Probably, he almost smiled. Your father. What was his name? Eduardo.
Eddie.
Everyone called him Eddie. Eddie Martinez. 8th grade math. Little League coach. Vito nodded. I'll remember.
Why?
Because you're right. He deserved better than getting caught in someone else's war. Vito finished his espresso. And because if I'm going to ask you to help me today, you deserve to know I understand what I'm asking. What this world costs. Lena studied him, really looked at him, past the danger and the power and the expensive clothes. Saw the exhaustion.
The weight.
The man trying to hold together an empire he'd never wanted but couldn't abandon. What do you need me to do? She heard herself ask. There's a banquet tonight. The event where everything comes to a head. I need you there. Watching. You notice things other people miss. And right now, I need those eyes. I'm a waitress, not a spy. You're someone they won't see coming. That's worth more than any spy. He held out his hand. One night. You help me survive tonight, and tomorrow you walk away. Clean slate. I'll make sure you're protected, set up with enough money to relocate if you want. New city, fresh start. Lena looked at his extended hand. Thought about her father. About Tommy's hands on her throat. About having agency instead of being a victim. She shook his hand. One night, she agreed. One night. Neither of them believed it would be that simple. The Grand Meridian Hotel sat in downtown Brooklyn like a monument to old money and new corruption. The ballroom on the 3rd floor, where the Castellano family held its annual gathering, was already buzzing with activity at 4 p.m. Lena stood near the entrance, wearing a simple black dress Vito had provided. Staff uniform, essentially. She'd been introduced to the event coordinator as additional help for the evening, vague enough to be ignored. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. White tablecloths draped dozens of round tables. A small orchestra was setting up in the corner. Everything screamed wealth and sophistication. Everything except the men in suits doing security sweeps with practiced efficiency. Stay mobile, Vito had told her in the car. Circulate. Listen. Watch who talks to who. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, you find Enzo and tell him. He'll be near the kitchen. Now Lena moved through the organized chaos, carrying a clipboard she didn't know how to use, pretending to check centerpieces while actually studying faces. She recognized some from news reports. A city councilman, a union president, a real estate developer who'd been investigated twice, but never charged. Legal society mixing with its criminal underbelly, the line between them blurred beyond recognition. Near the stage, Marco Ferretti directed workers like a conductor leading an orchestra. Silver hair perfect, expensive suit crisp, voice carrying authority. The head table needs to be exactly center, he called out. Mr. Castellano's chair should face the entrance. Security sight lines, people. Lena watched him work. Efficient. Confident. In control.
Too confident, maybe.
She drifted closer, adjusting a flower arrangement that didn't need adjusting. Marco's phone buzzed. He stepped away from the workers, voice dropping to a near whisper. Everything's set. The documents are ready. I'll present them during the toast, right after Vito's speech. A pause. The cousin has no idea. He's been with Vito all day playing family reunion. Lena's pulse quickened. She moved to the next table, kept her head down. By 10 o'clock, this will all be over, Marco continued. Vito gone, Nico discredited, and the family back under proper leadership. He laughed, cold and sharp. The old man would be proud. He ended the call and returned to directing setup. Lena's mind raced. Marco. It was Marco, the underboss who'd been loyal for 30 years. Who'd kissed the ring when Vito took over. Who'd smiled and bowed and waited for his moment.
She needed to tell Vito. Now.
She was heading toward the kitchen when she saw him. The busboy.
Jackie.
He wasn't dressed as staff this time. Button-down shirt, dark slacks, helping set up chairs near the bar. But it was definitely him. Same face. Same nervous energy masked as friendliness. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. Recognition flared in his expression. Then panic. Jackie turned and walked quickly toward the service corridor. Lena followed, keeping distance, trying to look casual. Through the corridor, past the coat check, toward a service elevator. Jackie glanced back once, saw her, and broke into a jog. She ran. Not smart. Probably suicidal. But if he disappeared now, they'd lose the connection. The service elevator doors started closing. Lena shoved her hand in, forced them open, squeezed through. Jackie backed against the elevator wall. Look, lady, I don't want trouble. Who's paying you? Lena demanded. Who told you to plant that note? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You worked at the diner for a week. Nobody else remembers you because you were never really hired. You planted that note for Vito Castellano. She stepped closer. Who's running you? The elevator dinged. Second floor. Jackie's hand moved to his jacket, going for something. The doors opened. Enzo stood there, gun drawn, pointed at Jackie's chest. Hands where I can see them, Enzo said calmly. Jackie slowly raised his hands. I'm unarmed. You're just coming with me? Enzo gestured with a gun. Move. They relocated to a storage room off the main kitchen. Boxes of linens. Industrial cleaning supplies. The smell of bleach and fear. Enzo kept the gun trained while making a call. Boss, we have your busboy. Miss Martinez found him. 5 minutes later, Vito arrived with Nico close behind. Vito looked at Jackie with the expression of a man solving a particularly annoying puzzle. I know you. I don't. Jackie Marino. You're Marco's nephew. Dropped out of NYU drama program 3 years ago. Vito's voice was ice. Your uncle's been using you for small jobs. Surveillance, mostly. Light work. Jackie's face went pale. What was the note? Vito asked quietly. The one you planted at the diner. What did it say? I don't. Vito moved fast, grabbed Jackie by the collar, slammed him against the wall. What did it say? He'll take your chair before dessert, Jackie gasped. That's all. I swear. That's all I know. Who wrote it? I don't know. Uncle Marco gave it to me. Told me to slip it under your saucer. Said it was important family business. Vito released him, stepped back. His expression was unreadable. Marco sent the warning, Nico said slowly. Why would he warn you about his own coup? He didn't. Vito turned to Lena. That note wasn't for Marco. It was from someone else. Someone warning me about Marco. Understanding dawned on Lena's face. Someone in Marco's crew who doesn't want to see you die. Or someone playing both sides, Enzo added grimly. Vito checked his watch. 4:47 p.m. The banquet starts in 3 hours. Marco's planning something during my speech. We need to know exactly what. He looked at Jackie. You're going to tell us everything. Every detail of your uncle's plan. And if you lie, if you hold back even one piece. I'll talk, Jackie interrupted, terrified. I'll tell you everything. Just please don't. Start talking, Vito said. As Jackie began spilling details, the forged documents, the planted evidence against Nico, the timeline for the accusation, Lena leaned against a box of tablecloths and tried to process what she'd stumbled into. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was part of the game. And tonight, when the pieces finally moved, she'd be right in the middle of the board. Vito caught her eye across the room, gave a small nod. "Thank you," it said. Or maybe, "I'm sorry." Lena nodded back. One night, she reminded herself. Just survive one night. The ballroom transformed as evening fell. Crystal chandeliers blazed with light. The orchestra played Sinatra. 300 guests in designer suits and evening gowns filled the space with laughter and conversation that sounded almost legitimate. Almost. Lena recognized the undercurrent, the tension beneath the sophistication. These weren't just wealthy people enjoying a party. They were predators in formal wear, circling each other, assessing weaknesses, calculating advantages. She moved through the crowd with a tray of champagne she'd grabbed from a passing waiter. Better camouflage. Just another piece of staff, invisible and ignored. Vito sat at the head table, flanked by Nico on his right and Marco on his left. The symbolism wasn't subtle: cousin and underboss, family and loyalty, bracketing the young boss like bookends. Except one of those bookends was rotting from the inside. Vito looked calm,
Composed.
playing his role perfectly. Only someone watching closely, like Lena, would notice the tension in his jaw, the way his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging exits and threats. They'd released Jackie 2 hours ago with explicit instructions: act normal, pretend nothing happened, and if Marco asked, say he'd seen the waitress, but lost her in the crowd. Jackie had agreed to everything, terrified and cooperative. Whether he'd actually follow through was anyone's guess. The first course arrived, some kind of seafood arrangement that probably cost more than Lena's rent. Conversation hummed. The orchestra shifted to something classical. Then Marco stood, tapping his wine glass with a knife. The room quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with dinner, I'd like to say a few words." Marco's voice carried across the ballroom, warm and paternal. "We gather tonight, as we do every year, to celebrate family, to honor tradition, to remember those we've lost, and welcome those who've returned." His gaze shifted to Nico. "Nico Castellano, 10 years you've been gone. 10 years building a life in Europe while your family held things together here." Marco smiled. "But blood calls to blood, doesn't it? And you've come home. So, I'd like to invite you to say a few words. Tell us about your time away. Tell us why you've returned." Nico looked at Vito, who gave a small nod. This wasn't the plan. Marco was improvising, putting Nico on the spot. Nico stood slowly, and Lena saw the intelligence in his eyes. He knew this was a trap. He just didn't know what kind yet. "Thank you, Marco." Nico's accent made the words sound almost musical. 10 years is a long time. I left because I wanted something different, something clean. I built a business in Barcelona, a wine bar. Small place. Honest work. He paused, looking around the room. But Vito called. My cousin. My family. And when family calls, you answer. Not because of obligation. Because of love. He turned to Vito. "I don't know the details of what you do now. I don't need to. What I know is that you're a good man trying to do right in a complicated world. And whatever you need from me, whatever help I can give, you have it. Always." The speech was simple. Sincere. Several guests nodded approvingly. Marco's smile never wavered, but Lena saw his eyes harden. "Beautiful words," Marco said. "Family. Loyalty.
Love.
These things matter." He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Which is why this breaks my heart." The temperature in the room dropped. Vito went very still. Marco opened the envelope, pulled out documents. 3 weeks ago, I received troubling information. Bank transfers from Madrid to shell companies here, in New York. Emails between foreign contacts and someone discussing leadership changes in our organization. Phone records showing communication with our rivals. He spread the papers on the table, all of it traced back to one source. One person who's been planning to overthrow Vito, to take control of this family through deception and betrayal. The ballroom was silent except for the faint clink of silverware someone dropped. Marco's hand fell on Nico's shoulder. I'm sorry, Nico. But the evidence is clear. You've been plotting against your own blood. That's insane, Nico said, his voice sharp with shock. I've been in Barcelona, running a legitimate business. With money from our rivals, Marco interrupted. He held up a bank statement. $2 million from a Genovese shell company. Payment for what, Nico? What did you sell them? I never. Nico grabbed the papers, scanning them. His face went white. This is fabricated. Someone's framing me. Convenient, Marco's voice dripped with false sympathy. Vito, I know this is difficult. He's your cousin. But we can't ignore evidence. The room fractured. Guests whispered. Some stood, unsure whether to stay or run. Security personnel tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Vito remained seated.
Calm.
Almost unnaturally so. He picked up his wine glass, took a slow sip, then looked at Marco with the expression of someone who'd just been told a mildly interesting joke. Sit down, Marco. Vito, you need to see. I said.
Sit.
Down. The command in his voice cut through the chaos. Marco hesitated, then slowly lowered himself into his chair. Vito stood, surveyed the room. Marco has presented evidence that my cousin is a traitor. Evidence that appears substantial. Convincing, even he paused. There's just one problem. He pulled out his own phone, tapped something, and the large screens mounted around the ballroom, meant for displaying family photos, suddenly showed something else. Security footage. Marco in the warehouse with Tommy, Sal, and Jackie. Audio played through the sound system. Marco's voice, crystal clear, discussing the coup. The forged documents. The plan to kill Vito. The ballroom erupted. Marco's face drained of color. That's not. Where did you? Jackie talked. Vito said simply. And once he talked, we found your warehouse. Your planning sessions. Everything. He looked at Marco with something like disappointment. 30 years, Marco. 30 years of loyalty. What happened? Marco's shock transformed into rage. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. Your father promised me this family. Promised that when he was gone, I'd lead. Then he gets killed, and the council chooses you, a boy, over me. He stood abruptly, chair crashing backward. I've earned this. I've bled for this family. Killed for it. And I'm done watching a child play boss. His hand moved inside his jacket. Every security guard in the room drew their weapon. Mexican standoff. 30 guns pointed in every direction. Guests screamed, diving under tables. Lena pressed herself against a pillar, heart hammering. Marco had his gun out now, pointed at Vito. You think you've won? You think exposing me stops anything? I've got 20 loyal men in this room. You move, you die. Vito didn't flinch. Maybe. But you die first. So, be it. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Lena saw it happening in slow motion. Saw Nico moving to shield Vito. Saw Enzo raising his weapon. Saw everything about to explode into violence. Then sirens.
Loud.
Multiple. Growing closer. Detective Rossi's voice boomed through a megaphone outside. This is the NYPD. The building is surrounded. Everyone exits with hands visible.
Now.
Marco's eyes went wide. Someone had called the police. The raid had begun. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed and stampeded toward exits. Security didn't know whether to point guns at Marco, at each other, or at the doors where police were about to flood in. The orchestra abandoned their instruments mid-note. Marco's gun remained trained on Vito, but his eyes darted toward the exits, calculating escape routes. Drop the weapon. Detective Rossi's voice boomed from the hallway. NYPD. Nobody moves. In the confusion, Lena saw Jackie, the busboy, slip away from his position near the bar. He was moving fast, not toward the exits but toward the service corridor, heading deeper into the building. Running. Instinct took over. Lena followed. She pushed through panicked guests, ducked under a waiter's tray, and reached the corridor just as Jackie disappeared through the kitchen doors. Behind her, she heard police storming into the ballroom, shouting commands. The kitchen was industrial chaos. Staff abandoned their posts, leaving pots boiling and ovens smoking. Jackie weaved through the stainless steel stations, heading for the back exit. Lena chased, her heels clicking on tile. Jackie, wait. He spun, wild-eyed. Leave me alone. I told them everything already. Then why are you running? Because Marco's going to kill me. Jackie backed toward the walk-in freezer. I betrayed him. You don't do that and live. The police are here. Marco's done. You don't understand, Jackie's voice cracked. Marco's not the top. He's working with someone. Someone bigger. Lena froze. What? The coup wasn't just his idea. There's a partner. Someone funding it, someone who... The freezer door burst open behind Jackie. Marco emerged like a ghost, gun in hand, face twisted with rage. He must have come through the back way, avoiding the police. You little shit, Marco snarled at Jackie. I gave you everything. Trained you. Protected you. And you sold me out. Uncle Marco, please. Marco fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed kitchen. Jackie crumpled, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his shirt. Lena stumbled backward, hitting a prep counter. Her hand found a knife, 10-inch chef's blade, and she grabbed it without thinking. Marco's eyes shifted to her. The waitress. You started all this. You couldn't just mind your own business. Police are everywhere, Lena said, trying to keep her voice steady. You shoot me, they'll hear it. You're already finished. I'm dead either way, Marco advanced slowly. Vito will kill me. The police will lock me up for life. At least this way, I take some of you with me. Who's your partner? Lena demanded, stalling. Jackie said someone's funding this. Who? Marco laughed bitterly. You think I'm stupid enough to tell you? I think you're proud enough. Lena kept the knife between them. This whole coup, it wasn't just about taking over, was it? Someone wanted Vito gone. Someone with money and connections. Who paid you, Marco? His expression flickered. Surprised that she'd figured it out. Then something like respect. The Genovese family, Marco said. Old rivalry. They wanted Castellano territory, but Vito's too smart, too careful. So, they approached me 6 months ago. Said they'd back my play. Money. Resources. Safe haven after. And you believed them? I believed I deserved better than watching a 32-year-old pretend to be his father. Marco's grip tightened on the gun. 40 years I've been in this life. I've earned. A shadow moved behind him. Enzo. He'd followed Lena through the kitchen, silent as a cat. Now his gun pressed against the base of Marco's skull. Drop it, Enzo said calmly. Marco froze. You'd shoot your own underboss. You stopped being underboss when you pointed a gun at my boss. Enzo's voice carried no emotion. Drop it. Last chance. For a moment, Lena thought Marco would turn, would force Enzo to shoot him. Suicide by gunfire rather than prison or execution. Then the gun clattered to the floor. Enzo kicked it away, pulled Marco's arms behind his back. On your knees. Marco knelt slowly, and for the first time, he looked old. Defeated. The rage drained out of him, leaving only exhaustion. Detective Rossi burst through the kitchen doors, 3 uniforms behind him, weapons drawn. He took in the scene, Jackie bleeding on the floor, Marco restrained, Lena holding a knife like a lifeline. Enzo Ricci, Rossi said, recognizing Vito's man. You want to tell me what the hell's going on? Self-defense, Enzo said smoothly. Marco Ferretti just shot his nephew and threatened Miss Martinez. We intervened. Rossi's eyes narrowed. He wasn't buying it, not completely, but Jackie was bleeding and Marco was armed. The story would hold. Get an ambulance for the kid, Rossi ordered his officers. Then to Marco. Marco Ferretti, You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, and about 15 other charges I'll think of on the way to the station. As they cuffed Marco and read him his rights, Lena finally lowered the knife. Her hands were shaking so badly it clattered against the counter. Enzo touched her elbow gently. You okay? No, her voice came out hoarse. He was going to kill me, but he didn't. You did good. Got him talking. That confession about the Genovese family, that's huge. Rossi overheard. The Genovese family? They're backing this coup. Marco laughed from the floor, bitter and broken. Good luck proving it. Everything's insulated. Shell companies.
Cutouts.
You'll never trace it back. Maybe. Rossi hauled him to his feet. But I've got you. And you're going to tell me everything, Marco. Because cooperating is the only card you've got left to play. They dragged Marco out, still laughing that hollow, defeated laugh. Jackie was loaded onto a stretcher, conscious but pale. He'd survive. Whether he'd testify was another question. Lena slumped against the counter, adrenaline crashing. She'd been in 3 life-or-death situations in 24 hours. Her throat still hurt from being choked. Her heart felt like it might explode from her chest. Come on, Enzo said gently. Boss is going to want to know you're safe. They walked back through the kitchen, past abandoned food and smoking pans, toward the ballroom where police were sorting through 300 witnesses and trying to figure out which crimes to prioritize. Lena had wanted a simple life. Wanted to serve coffee and save tips, and maybe someday open her own place. Instead, she'd helped bring down a mob underboss and exposed a conspiracy that reached across crime families. Her father would have been proud. Or horrified. Probably both. She emerged into the ballroom to find Vito standing with Nico, surrounded by police, but somehow untouchable. When he saw Lena, relief flooded his face. He crossed to her immediately. You're okay? Relatively speaking, she managed a weak smile. Marco confessed. The Genovese family's behind it. They paid him to overthrow you. Vito's expression went cold. Did Rossi hear this? Every word. Good, he turned to Enzo. Get her out of here. Take her to the brownstone. Post guards. Nobody gets near her. Vito, I can. You can rest, Vito said firmly. You've done enough for one night. More than enough. He was right. She'd done enough. More than she ever should have. As Enzo led her toward a side exit, away from the police and the chaos, Lena looked back once. Vito stood in the center of the ballroom, Nico beside him, police circling like sharks. But he was still standing. Still alive. And somehow, impossibly, that mattered to her. The ballroom was a war zone. Detective Rossi had 20 officers forming a perimeter, but 300 witnesses and at least a dozen armed security guards made for a volatile mix. Half of Marco's crew didn't know their boss had been exposed. The other half knew and were calculating whether loyalty or survival mattered more. Vito stood in the center, Nico at his side, watching his empire teeter on the edge of collapse. Mr. Castellano, Rossi approached, hand resting on his holstered weapon. I'm going to need you to come downtown. Answer some questions. About what, detective? Vito's voice was calm. Reasonable. I'm a victim here. Marco Ferretti attempted a coup. He created false evidence against my cousin. He shot his own nephew. You have him in custody. I also have 300 witnesses who saw armed men pointing guns at each other. Rossi gestured around the ballroom. That's not a party. That's a criminal conspiracy. That's self-defense. Nico interjected. Marco pulled a weapon. Security responded appropriately. Rossi's eyes narrowed. And who are you? Nico Castellano. I run a wine bar in Barcelona. I'm here visiting family. He pulled out his passport, Spanish residency papers. I'm a legitimate businessman, detective. Check my records. Before Rossi could respond, shouting erupted near the main entrance. Marco's men, Tommy the Hammer and Sal Peretti, the ones who'd threatened Lena at the diner, had made it to the ballroom. They saw their boss being led away in handcuffs by two uniforms and made a catastrophically stupid decision. They drew weapons. Let him go, Tommy bellowed. Everything happened at once. Police officers drew down. Vito's security pulled weapons. Guests who hadn't already fled screamed and hit the floor. The orchestra pit became a mass of bodies seeking cover. Stand down, Rossi shouted. Nobody has to die here. But Tommy wasn't listening. His loyalty to Marco, or maybe just his fear of what would happen if Marco talked, overrode any survival instinct. He aimed at the officers holding Marco.
Fired.
The shot went wild, shattering a chandelier. Crystal rained down like deadly snow. Then everyone was shooting. Muzzle flashes lit the ballroom. The orchestra's expensive instruments splintered under gunfire. Sal took a round to the leg and went down screaming. Tommy fired again, hitting one of Rossi's officers in the shoulder. In the chaos, Marco saw his chance. The two uniforms escorting him dove for cover, instinctively releasing him. Marco ran, still handcuffed, heading for the kitchen corridor. Enzo appeared from nowhere, blocking his path. Going somewhere? Marco didn't slow down. He lowered his shoulder and crashed into Enzo, both men tumbling into the service corridor. Vito saw it happen. Stay here, he told Nico, then sprinted after them. Vito, don't. Nico's protest was drowned by another gunshot. Vito reached the corridor as Enzo and Marco struggled. Marco, even handcuffed, fought with the desperation of a cornered animal. He smashed his cuffed hands into Enzo's face, grabbed Enzo's dropped gun with his bound hands, and continued running toward the kitchen exit. Marco. Vito's voice echoed down the corridor. Marco spun, the gun awkward in his cuffed hands, but still deadly. You should have let me lead, he panted. I could have made this family great again. You would have destroyed it. Sold us out to the Genovese for your own ego. Better than watching you play dress up as Don. Marco's finger found the trigger. Goodbye, Vito.
2 shots.
But not for Marco. Nico had followed Vito, picked up a gun from a fallen security guard, and fired from the corridor entrance. Both rounds hit Marco in the back. Marco staggered forward, the gun slipping from his cuffed hands. He turned, saw Nico, and something like surprise crossed his face. The cousin, he whispered. Should've.
Killed you.
First. He collapsed. Enzo scrambled over, kicked the gun away, checked for a pulse, looked up at Vito and shook his head. Marco Ferretti was dead. 30 years in the life. Survivor of gang wars, federal investigations, and countless violent nights. Killed by a wine bar owner from Barcelona who'd been trying to stay out of the life. Vito looked at Nico, who stood frozen, the gun trembling in his hands. You okay? I just killed a man. Nico's voice was hollow. I came here to help you, and you saved my life. Vito took the gun gently from his cousin's hands. Thank you. Police flooded the corridor, Rossi in the lead. He assessed the scene, Marco's body, the gun, Nico's shocked expression. He tried to escape. Enzo said quickly. Grab my weapon. Was about to shoot Mr. Castellano. His cousin intervened. Rossi looked skeptical, but nodded slowly. Too many witnesses. Too much chaos. And Marco had just orchestrated a failed coup in front of 300 people. Everyone downtown, Rossi said. Statements. Evidence. This is going to be a long night. Back in the ballroom, the shooting had stopped. Tommy was dead, half his skull blown away by police fire. Sal was wounded and in custody. The other security personnel had surrendered, hands raised, weapons dropped. It was over. Vito's phone buzzed. Enzo. Lena's secure at the brownstone. 3 guards posted. Relief flooded through him. She was safe. Nico was safe. The immediate threat was neutralized. But the Genovese family connection remained. Marco's confession to Lena had opened a door, but proving it would take time. Resources. Careful maneuvering. The war wasn't over. Just this battle. Mr. Castellano, Rossi appeared beside him. We're going to have a long conversation about tonight. About your organization. About what laws were broken. I look forward to it, Detective. I have nothing to hide. It was a beautiful lie, delivered with perfect sincerity. Rossi didn't believe it, but he couldn't prove otherwise.
Not yet.
As police processed the crime scene and EMTs tended to the wounded, Vito stood with Nico amid the wreckage of what should have been a simple annual dinner. I'm sorry, Vito said quietly. I brought you into this. Made you part of something you wanted no part of. You're my cousin, Nico said, still pale but steadier now. Family. That hasn't changed. You should go back to Barcelona. Tomorrow. Get clear of this before it gets worse. Nico looked at the bodies being covered with sheets. At the blood on marble floors. At the shattered crystal and bullet holes in silk wallpaper. Yeah, he said softly. I should. But something in his eyes said he wasn't sure he would. Violence had a way of pulling you in. Even when you'd spent 10 years running away from it. Especially then. The police station smelled like bad coffee and broken promises. Lena sat in an interrogation room that looked exactly like every crime show depicted, gray walls, metal table, two-way mirror reflecting her exhausted face. Detective Rossi sat across from her, notepad open, recorder running. Let's go through it one more time, he said, not unkindly. You followed Jackie Marino into the kitchen. Then what? Marco came out of the freezer. He shot Jackie. Threatened me. Lena's voice was mechanical. She'd told this story 3 times already. Enzo Ricci intervened. You arrived. That's it. And Marco confessed to you about the Genovese family involvement.
Yes.
He said they approached him 6 months ago. Offered money and resources to overthrow Vito Castellano. Rossi leaned back. Miss Martinez, you understand you're a key witness in a major organized crime case? Marco's dead, but the conspiracy goes deeper. We need you to testify. I've told you everything I know, and we need you protected while we build the case. Witness protection. New identity. Fresh start somewhere safe. Lena had thought about it during the long hours at the brownstone after the raid. A new name. New city. Leave behind the diner, the neighborhood, the memories of her father. Leave behind everything. No, she said firmly. Miss Martinez. I'm not running. I'm not hiding, she met his eyes. My father died in this neighborhood. I stayed because it's home. I'm not letting Marco Ferretti or the Genovese family or anyone else chase me away from it. They might kill you. Then they kill me. But I'm not living in fear for the rest of my life, she stood. Are we done, Detective? Rossi studied her for a long moment, then nodded. For now. But keep your phone on. We'll need you again. Outside the station, dawn was breaking over Brooklyn. Lena had been awake for 36 hours. Her body ached. Her mind felt like static. A black car waited at the curb. Enzo stood beside it. Boss wanted me to drive you home, he said. Where is he? Still being questioned. Probably another few hours. Enzo opened the door. He wanted to make sure you got back safe. The drive to her apartment was quiet. Lena watched the city wake up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, bodega owners rolling up shutters. Normal life continuing like nothing had happened. Like a mob underboss hadn't just been killed at a luxury hotel. Like she hadn't helped expose a conspiracy that reached across crime families. Can I ask you something? Lena said. Enzo glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Shoot. Why do you do it? Work for him. Stay in this life. Honest answer? Please. Because Vito Castellano is the best boss I've ever had.
Fair.
Smart. Doesn't ask us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Enzo paused. The life's dirty. Always will be. But some people make it dirtier than it needs to be. Vito tries to keep it clean. Much as possible anyway. That's not redemption.
No.
But it's something. Enzo pulled up to her building. Get some sleep, Miss Martinez. You've earned it. Lena slept through most of the day, her dreams a confused jumble of gunfire and broken crystal. When she finally woke, her phone showed 42 missed calls and 100 texts. Rita, what is happening? The news is saying there was a shooting at some hotel. The news.
Right.
The raid would be everywhere. Rich people party turned violent. Bodies.
Arrests.
She didn't read the articles. Didn't want to see Marco's face, or worse, her own name mentioned. At 7 p.m., someone knocked on her door. Lena checked the peephole. Vito stood in the hallway, alone, wearing jeans and a gray sweater. No bodyguards. No entourage. She opened the door. You look terrible, she said. You should see the other guy, he smiled weakly. Can I come in? Her apartment was small, studio with a kitchenette, second-hand furniture, the kind of place that came from working minimum wage and paying off her father's medical debts. She felt suddenly embarrassed by how modest it was. But Vito didn't seem to notice or care. He sat on her worn couch like it was fine leather. Nico's cleared, he said. Forensics proved the documents were forged. Spain verified his legitimate business. He's free to go. That's good. He saved my life tonight. I know. So did you. Vito looked at her, really looked at her. You followed Jackie when you should have run. You got Marco talking when you should have stayed quiet. You helped solve this thing. I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. I owe you everything, Lena. Your life. Your safety. Whatever you need. I don't want your money, she interrupted. Then what do you want? Good question. What did she want? I want to go back to my normal life.
Pour que fi.
Deal with difficult customers. Pay my bills. Be boring, she smiled sadly. I want to forget the last 3 days ever happened. Will you? Forget. No, honest answer. But I can try. Vito stood slowly. Detective Rossi told me you refused witness protection. I'm not running for my home. That's brave. Also possibly stupid. He pulled out a card, wrote something on the back. My private number. Not business.
Just me.
If anything happens, anything at all, you call. Day or night. She took the card. Their fingers brushed. Vito. Yeah. Thank you. For trying to protect me. For sending Enzo. For she struggled to find the words. For being more than I expected. His smile was genuine this time.
Warm.
You too. He walked to the door, paused. The diner. You going back to work? Tomorrow. Life goes on, right? Right, he looked like he wanted to say something else, then thought better of it. Take care of yourself, Lena Martinez. You too, Vito Castellano. He left, footsteps fading down the hallway. Lena stood in her apartment, holding his card, feeling something she couldn't quite name. Not love, not yet, but connection, recognition, the beginning of something that might become more, given time and different circumstances. Outside her window, Brooklyn hummed with life. The world kept turning, and somehow, against all odds, she'd survived. 5 days after the banquet, the bell above the diner door chimed at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Lena looked up from the register and felt her breath catch. Vito Castellano stood in the doorway, wearing a navy suit and a careful smile. Behind him, morning light painted the Brooklyn street in gold. The diner didn't go silent this time. Mrs. Chin kept complaining about her eggs. The construction workers at table 4 continued their argument about the Mets. Rita barely glanced up from refilling coffee. Life had moved on. The news cycle had shifted to other scandals. Marco Ferretti's death was already old news. Mob violence in New York, shocking for a day, forgotten by the weekend. Morning, Vito said, heading toward booth 7. Morning, Lena replied, grabbing the coffee pot. The good stuff, always the good stuff for him. She walked over, flipped his cup, and paused. The usual? Please, he watched her pour, then added, 2 cups today. Lena raised an eyebrow. Expecting company? Maybe. His eyes met hers. If she's got time to sit. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. My break isn't until 9:30. I can wait. She brought him his breakfast. 2 eggs over easy, rye toast, bacon crispy, not chewy. Muscle memory. Same order he'd been getting for 6 months, long before notes and coups and gunfire. The morning rush came and went. Lena served coffee, took orders, avoided Rita's knowing looks. At 9:28, she poured herself a cup and slid into the booth across from Vito. He'd been reading the Times. Business section, not the crime blotter. "No notes today?" she asked, gesturing to his saucer. "None," he smiled. "Though I've been checking obsessively. Apparently, I have trust issues now. Can't imagine why." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Outside, Brooklyn hummed. Traffic, voices, the rhythm of a neighborhood that had seen everything and kept going anyway. "Nico left yesterday," Vito said finally. "Back to Barcelona. Clean slate." "How is he?" "Shaken."
Guilty.
But alive. Vito took a sip of coffee. "He killed a man, Lena. That changes you." "I know she did. She'd seen Jackie get shot. Watched Marco die. Some things couldn't be unseen." "The Genovese situation is complicated," Vito continued. "Marco's confession gives us leverage, but proving direct involvement is another story. It'll take time. More violence. Hopefully not. Right now, we're in détente. They know we know.
We know they know we know.
Nobody wants open war. That's the life, though.
Right?
Always another threat. Always looking over your shoulder." Yeah, he met her eyes. "It is. Why do you stay?" He'd been asked this before. She knew he had. Probably answered it 100 different ways for 100 different people. But something in his expression shifted, became more honest. "Because walking away doesn't erase what I've done. And someone needs to hold the line against worse options." Marco wanted to partner with the Genovese, carve up territory, make it bloodier. Vito's voice was quiet. "I'm not good, Lena. But I'm trying to be less bad. Some days, that's all I've got." She understood that. The weight of trying to be decent in an indecent world. "My shift ends at 2 today," she heard herself say. "Yeah. There's a park. Prospect Park. I go sometimes. Feed the ducks, read, pretend Brooklyn's peaceful. Sounds nice. You could meet me. If you wanted." As she paused, searching for the right word. "As people. Not boss and witness. Just 2 people who survived something strange together." Vito's smile was genuine. "I'd like that. No bodyguards. No business. Just," she gestured vaguely. "Just us," he finished. "Deal." Rita appeared with a coffee pot, refilling both their cups. She looked between them, wise enough to read the moment, smart enough not to comment. When she left, Vito pulled out his wallet, a gesture Lena recognized. "Don't," she said. "Not today. Today you pay like a normal customer. $12 for breakfast." He laughed, surprised and delighted. $12? Plus tip if you're feeling generous. He pulled out a 20, left it on the table. "Keep the change. Big spender." "I try." He stood, buttoned his jacket. 2 o'clock. Main entrance. "I'll be there." He walked toward the door, then paused, looked back. "Lena?" "Yeah. Thank you. For everything. For being brave when you didn't have to be. For," he searched for words. "For seeing me. The actual me. Not the reputation." "You're welcome." The bell chimed as he left. Lena sat in booth 7, hands wrapped around her coffee cup, feeling something bloom in her chest. Not love. Not yet. But possibility. The recognition that 2 people from completely different worlds had found common ground in chaos. That maybe, with time and honesty and careful steps, something real could grow. She picked up the 20, tucked it into her apron, and smiled. Outside, Vito climbed into his car, the modest Audi, not the flashy SUV. Enzo sat in the driver's seat. "How'd it go, boss?" "Good." Vito looked back at the diner, at the window where Lena was clearing their table. "Really good." "She's different. Enzo observed. From the usual crowd. That's exactly why Vito settled into his seat. Take me to the office. We've got the Genovese situation to manage. Then clear my schedule for this afternoon. Boss. I've got a date to feed ducks in Prospect Park. Enzo grinned. Never thought I'd see the day. Neither did I. The car pulled away, merging into Brooklyn traffic. Behind them, the diner continued its morning rhythm.
Coffee poured.
Orders called. Life happened in all its messy, beautiful complexity. And in booth 7, a waitress named Lena Martinez sat with an empty cup and a secret smile, thinking about parks and possibilities and the strange way the universe connected people. One note had changed everything. One conversation had saved lives. And now one afternoon might become something more. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.